The silent throne room. The heavy doors of the alien palace opened with a groan. The sound echoed through the golden hall. A human man was dragged forward by guards with shining armor and sharp weapons. He had chains around his wrists, but his eyes did not lower. Instead, he looked around at the tall pillars, the glowing crystals on the walls, and the many alien nobles who watched him with cold stares. They whispered among themselves. Some called him a criminal, some called him a fool who dared to step into the queen's land. Yet none dared to speak too loud, for this was the royal throne room, and every word here could mean life or death. At the far end, on a throne carved from living crystal, sat the alien queen. She was tall, her eyes like burning silver, her crown glowing with strange light. She raised her hand, and silence spread across the chamber. Even the guards holding the human bowed their heads. The queen's voice rang out, calm but sharp like a blade. "Why is this creature brought before me?" she asked. Her words were not in human tongue, yet somehow he understood. The translator embedded in the walls made her voice echo in his mind. One of the guards stepped forward. "Your Majesty, this human was found near the sacred gardens. He claims he was only passing through, but we believe he is a spy." The nobles hissed and muttered, their eyes filled with hatred. For them, a human in their palace was an insult. The queen leaned forward, her gaze fixed on him. "Do you dare stand before me without fear?" she asked. The human swallowed. His heart beat fast, but he refused to kneel. "I am no spy," he said, his voice firm. "I came here by accident. I meant no harm." Laughter filled the hall, sharp and cruel. Nobles pointed at him, their jeweled robes swaying as they mocked. "A liar," one said. "A thief," another added. The queen raised her hand again, and all fell silent. "Your words are weak, human," she said. "Why should I not end you where you stand?" The air grew heavy. The guards tightened their grip on his chains. The human's mouth went dry. He searched for words, but none came. Then, before the queen could give her command, a small voice broke the silence. "Father." Every head turned. From behind the throne, a small alien child stepped forward. Her skin glowed faintly blue, her hair silver like her mother's crown. Her big eyes stared straight at the human, and again she whispered, "Father." Gasps spread through the hall. The nobles rose from their seats, their voices a storm of shock. "Impossible. Blasphemy. The princess, she calls him father?" The guards froze, unsure of what to do. The queen's face turned pale, her silver eyes wide for the first time. She looked at her daughter, then at the human. Her lips trembled, but no words came. The human stood frozen, his heart pounded. He had never seen this child before, yet something deep inside stirred at her voice, something that felt like truth. The little girl ran across the floor, past the guards, past the nobles, and threw her small arms around the human's waist. She clung to him as if she had known him all her life. "Father," she said again, louder this time, her voice echoing through the crystal hall. The queen rose from her throne, her power filling the room, but even she could not speak. For the first time in her reign, the queen of a mighty empire was struck silent by the words of a child, and the human, still chained, still surrounded by enemies, realized that his life had changed forever. Whispers in the palace. The throne room was still silent when the queen finally raised her hand. The nobles lowered their voices. Though their eyes burned with fury and fear, the human stood unmoving, the child still clinging to his side, her small fingers wrapped around his wrist as if she would never let go. The queen's voice shook when she spoke, though she tried to hide it. "Take him," she ordered, "but not to the dungeons." Her words surprised everyone. A prisoner should have been thrown into the cold, dark cells beneath the palace. Instead, she commanded the guards to place him in one of the golden guest chambers. The nobles erupted into protest. "He is a danger, Majesty," one shouted. "He is a deceiver, a curse," another cried. But the queen silenced them with a glare. "Enough," she said. Her silver eyes glowed with authority, and even the boldest noble bowed their head. The human was led away, his chains loosened but not removed. The child walked beside him, refusing to let go of his hand. The queen watched with a storm inside her heart. She could not understand how this stranger had broken her daughter's silence, for in all her short life, the princess had never spoken a single word, not to her mother, not to her tutors, not even to the healers who tried to help. Yet today, in front of the court, she spoke her very first word, and it was "Father." The palace whispered with every step the human took. Servants peeked from behind curtains. Guards muttered under their breath. The story spread like fire. The silent princess had spoken, and she had called a human her father. Inside the golden chamber, the human sat down on a soft couch. His chains rattled, but he barely noticed. The child climbed beside him, her glowing eyes never leaving his face. He spoke softly. "Little one, I don't know why you call me that. I am not your father. But the child only smiled. She touched his chest, right over his heart, and whispered again, "Father." Her voice was filled with a strange certainty, as if she knew something he did not. A guard stood at the door, shifting uneasily. He wanted to laugh, yet fear kept him silent. Even hardened soldiers were unsettled by the idea of a prophecy made flesh. For long ago, the old texts spoke of a time when a child of the crown would choose her guardian, not by blood, not by law, but by destiny. And now, that destiny seemed to point to a human. Later that night, the queen came to the chamber alone. She dismissed the guards and entered quietly. Her eyes softened for a moment as she looked at her daughter curled beside the prisoner. The girl was sleeping peacefully for the first time in years, her small hand gripping the man's sleeve. The queen's voice was low, heavy with doubt and anger. "You will tell me why she speaks to you. You will tell me why her first word was father, or I will see you destroyed." The human met her gaze. "I have no answers. I never knew her before today. I am as shocked as you are." The queen's hands clenched. She wanted to believe he lied, but the look in his eyes was too clear, too honest. She turned to leave, but before she stepped out, she whispered words no one else could hear. "If fate is truly at work, then I fear what is coming." The door closed. The human sat in silence, staring at the child who had chosen him. His heart was heavy, for he felt something strange too, as if somewhere deep inside, her voice had awakened a bond he could not explain. And in the shadows of the palace, the nobles plotted, whispering that this human must be removed before prophecy could rise. They did not know how or when, but they swore they would not let destiny take their power. The queen's hidden fear. Night covered the palace with a silver glow. The halls were quiet, but whispers still lingered in the shadows. Nobles had gone to their chambers, guards walked their rounds, yet none could forget the shocking words of the little princess. In her private throne room, the queen sat alone. Her crown was set aside, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. She stared at a crystal mirror, one that shimmered with ancient runes. The mirror reflected not only her face, but her fears. She remembered the prophecies she had sworn to bury. Long ago, before her daughter was born, the temple seers spoke of a vision. The child of the crown will break her silence not to her blood, but to the one chosen by the stars. The chosen will not be of our kind. He will carry the bond that no blade can sever, and through him the empire shall tremble. The queen had dismissed the prophecy. She had ordered the scrolls sealed, the seers banished, for she feared what it meant. A stranger, not of her people, taking a place even she could not touch. It was a threat to her throne, to her rule, to her pride. And yet, today, it had begun. Her daughter had spoken her first word, and that word was not mother, but father. And the man she chose was human. The queen's chest ached, not only with fear but with something deeper, for she loved her daughter more than her crown. The girl had been silent since birth, no laugh, no cry, only still eyes watching the world. The healers said she was cursed, the priests said she was special, but no answer had ever come. Until now, the queen rose from her seat and moved through the dark halls, her steps silent, her heart heavy. She came to the golden chamber where the human was kept. The guards bowed, but she waved them away. She wanted no witnesses. Inside, the human was awake, sitting near the bed where the child slept peacefully. She was curled close to him, her small hand resting against his arm. A faint glow of warmth surrounded her, as if his presence gave her peace. The queen's eyes hardened. "Why does she choose you?" she demanded, her voice low but sharp. "What trick have you played?" The human stood, though his chains rattled. "I played no trick," he answered. "I don't know why she calls me that. I don't even know her name. But when she looks at me, something inside me stirs, something I can't explain." The queen studied him. His eyes were steady, not the eyes of a liar, and her heart trembled, for she saw in him the same honesty she once saw in her late king. "Do you know what it means?" she whispered, almost to herself, her voice cracked for the first time in years. "If the bond is true, then no power in this empire can break it, not even mine." The human frowned. "Bond?" he asked. But the queen turned away, unwilling to reveal more. She looked at her daughter, sleeping like she had never slept before. No fear, no cold silence, but peace. And tears pricked the queen's eyes. She had prayed for years to hear her child's voice, and when it finally came, it was not for her. Her voice shook. "If destiny has chosen you, human, then the court will turn against you. They will not accept this bond. They will demand your blood, and if I do not act, they may take hers too." The human's jaw tightened. "Then let them come," he said. "I don't care what they think. If she needs me, I'll stand by her." The queen froze. She had expected fear, begging, denial, but instead, she saw defiance, she saw courage, she saw a heart willing to stand against an empire for the sake of one child, and for the first time the queen doubted herself. She had ruled for decades with strength, never bending to prophecy or fate. But now, her throne felt weaker than the bond between her daughter and this stranger. She left the chamber in silence, her steps heavy. In the shadows, unseen, an elder noble watched her leave, his lips curled into a smile. Already he planned how to twist this bond into a weapon against her rule. And in the chamber, the child stirred in her sleep. She whispered the word again, soft and full of peace. Father. The human closed his eyes. His heart knew something his mind could not yet understand. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was part of something greater, a bond written in stars, the child's memories. Morning light touched the palace walls, turning the crystal windows into rivers of color. The human awoke to the sound of soft breathing. The little princess was curled at his side, her silver hair glowing in the sunlight. For a moment, he thought it was all a dream, until she opened her eyes and whispered again, "Father." He smiled weakly, though chains still bound his wrists. "Little one, you are mistaken," he said softly. "I am no father to you." Yet her eyes did not change. They shone with calm certainty, as if she knew something even he could not deny. Soon, servants entered the chamber, bowing nervously. They brought trays of fruit and golden bread, food fit for a royal guest, not a prisoner. Their eyes avoided his, but they could not hide their whispers. "The princess spoke," one muttered. "She spoke because of him," another hissed. Fear and awe danced in every word. As the human ate little, the princess suddenly spoke again. Her voice was quiet yet clear. "I know you, father." The human's breath caught. "No, you don't," he whispered. But she shook her head. "I saw you," she said. "In the fire, in the dark. You carried me away." He froze. His heart raced. Images flashed in his mind. He remembered the strange dreams he had on his journey. Dreams of a child crying in flames, a small voice calling for help. He had woken each time, sweating, believing it was only his imagination. Yet now, this little girl spoke of the same vision. The queen entered then, her presence filling the chamber. She dismissed the servants with a gesture, her eyes locked on the child. "What do you mean, my daughter?" she asked. Her voice carried both fear and demand. The child turned her glowing eyes to her mother. "He saved me," she said. "I saw him before I was born. He is the one who holds me in the dark." The queen's hands trembled. She had heard such words before, from the forbidden scrolls she once destroyed. The prophecy had spoken of shared dreams, a bond that reached across stars, connecting souls before they even touched. The human shook his head. "This is impossible. I never saw her before. I don't know how she knows my dreams." His voice cracked, part denial, part fear. The queen stepped closer, her silver eyes blazing. "Do not lie to me," she demanded. "If you play tricks, I will end you myself." But the child reached for the human again. Her small fingers brushed the chain on his wrist, and it glowed faintly. A strange light ran along the metal, soft but alive. The queen gasped, for she knew what it meant. "Bond light," she whispered, her voice shaking. "It is true. She has chosen. The bond cannot be broken." The human looked at the queen, then at the child. His heart sank deeper into mystery. "Why me?" he asked. "Why would she choose a stranger, a man from another world?" The queen's answer was quiet. "Because fate does not ask permission." Outside the chamber, the nobles listened from the shadows, their faces twisted with fear and rage. If the prophecy was true, then their power meant nothing. A single human could stand at the heart of the throne, protected by destiny itself. They whispered dark plans. Some wanted to kill him at once, others wanted to kill the child. But all agreed, if this bond grew stronger, the empire would change forever. Back inside, the child leaned against him, whispering words that chilled him. "Do not leave me, father. They will try to take you away, but you must stay." The human placed his chained hand gently on her head. For the first time, he felt not like a prisoner, but like a protector. He had no idea why destiny had chosen him, but deep inside, he knew he could not walk away. And the queen, watching them both, felt her strength crumble. Her throne was no longer her greatest fear. It was the truth her daughter carried. The truth that destiny had already begun. The court turns hostile. The queen summoned her court again. The throne room filled with nobles in heavy robes and jeweled crowns. Their voices were loud even before she arrived. The story of the human had spread beyond the palace walls, and fear had grown sharper. When the queen entered, silence fell. Her silver eyes scanned the room, and behind her, the human walked, still bound in chains. The little princess clung to his hand, refusing to be parted. The nobles rose in anger. Their voices crashed together like thunder. "This cannot be allowed," one shouted. "He is a trickster, a deceiver," cried another. "A human cannot stand beside the crown." The queen raised her hand. "Silence," she commanded. But this time, silence did not come so easily. The nobles were not whispering now. They were shouting. They were demanding. An elder noble stepped forward, his cloak trailing behind him. His eyes burned with pride and fury. "Majesty," he said, his voice cold, "this creature must be destroyed. The child's words are dangerous. He cannot be allowed to live." The human's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He could feel the heat of their hatred pressing against him. His chains rattled as his fists clenched. The queen's lips parted, but before she could speak, another noble shouted, "He will bring ruin. The prophecy is true, and if it is true, then the throne will fall. Do you wish to lose your empire to a stranger?" The throne room erupted into chaos, nobles shouting, guards shifting uneasily. The queen stood tall, but her hands trembled at her sides. The little princess suddenly stepped forward, her small voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Stop," she cried. Her voice echoed, strong and clear. It was the first time many had ever heard her speak, and the hall froze in shock. She turned to the nobles, her glowing eyes fierce. "If he dies, I die," she declared. Her tiny hands gripped the human's chains. "You cannot take him from me." Gasps filled the air. Some nobles recoiled as if struck. Others snarled with rage. "She is only a child," one sneered. "She does not understand." But the queen's face had turned pale, for she knew her daughter's words carried the power of truth. The bond was real, and no law of men or aliens could erase it. The elder noble sneered, "Majesty, this is madness. Will you let a child decide the fate of the empire?" The queen's voice cracked like thunder. "Enough," she commanded. The hall trembled with her power. "You forget your place." Her silver eyes blazed as she stared down the nobles, yet even as her words silenced them, she knew the fire was not gone. Their fear had only grown, and fear would soon turn to blood. The human knelt slightly to the child, whispering softly, "Shem, you should not have said that." But the girl shook her head, her voice calm. "I will never let them take you." For the first time, the human realized she was not simply a frightened child. She was the daughter of a queen, born with the courage of a crown. But outside the throne room, in the shadows of the palace, the plotting grew darker. The elder noble gathered others, whispering of poison, blades, and hidden assassins. "If the queen will not act, we shall," he hissed, "before prophecy devours us all." And inside, the queen sat on her throne, her heart heavy, torn between her people and her child. Between her crown and fate itself, she whispered under her breath, a truth she dared not speak aloud, "I am losing my empire." The human looked at her, chains heavy on his wrists, and for the first time, he wondered if he had stepped into a battle far greater than he could ever escape. A secret bond revealed. The queen could not rest that night. Her steps carried her to the sacred temple, hidden deep inside the palace. Its walls were carved with ancient runes, glowing faintly as if the stones themselves still remembered the old days. She stood before the altar, her mind filled with the words of prophecy she had buried long ago. But before she could silence her thoughts, an old priest entered. His robes were worn, his face marked by years, his voice cracked like dry leaves. "Majesty," he said softly, "you can no longer hide it. The bond has awakened." The queen's jaw tightened. "I know," she whispered, "but if I accept it, I lose my crown. If I deny it, I may lose my child." The priest bowed his head. "Then perhaps fate has already chosen for you." The next day, the court gathered again. Nobles sat in their jeweled seats. Guards lined the walls. The air was heavy, thick with fear. The human was brought forward, the little princess holding his hand as always. She would not let go, her eyes glowing like small stars. The elder noble rose, his voice sharp. "Majesty, we demand pray. Oof. If this bond is real, let it be revealed. If it is false, then let the fire burn him and end this madness." The queen's eyes narrowed, but she nodded slowly. "Bring the elder priest," she ordered. "Let the truth be shown." The priest entered, leaning on his staff. His steps were weak, but his eyes held strength. He stood before the human and the child. "If the bond is false, the light will not answer," he said. "But if it is true, all will see." He gestured for the child to place her hand on the human's chest. The hall grew silent. Nobles leaned forward, hearts pounding. The human himself felt his breath catch. The little princess looked up at him with trust. She pressed her hand to his chest, right over his heart. At first, nothing happened. the nobles sneered. Whispers of mockery filled the air, but then, slowly, a glow began to spread from her hand. It was soft at first, like candlelight, then brighter, filling the hall with warmth. The glow moved across his body, tracing lines like threads of fire. The chains around his wrists shone too, as if resisting, then melted away with a hiss. Gasps filled the room. Nobles stumbled back. Guards gripped their weapons but dared not move. The glow formed a mark on the human's chest, a symbol ancient and sacred, the same symbol carved into the walls of the temple itself. The priest fell to his knees, his voice trembling. "The bond of stars," he whispered. "It is real. The child has chosen, and destiny has answered." The queen's eyes widened, her breath caught in her throat. She knew that mark, she had seen it in the visions, the sign of the one who would change the empire. The elder noble's face twisted with fury. "Lies!" he shouted. "Tricks of human magic!" He drew a blade, pointing it toward the man. "Kill him before it is too late." But before the guards could act, the child stepped in front of the human, her. Arms spread wide, her voice rang through the hall. "You cannot touch him. He is mine." The mark on the human's chest blazed brighter, the flames dancing harmlessly around the girl as she spoke. The nobles who tried to step closer were thrown back by invisible force. Their cries filled the air as they fell to the ground. The queen rose slowly from her throne, her voice heavy with awe. "It cannot be denied. The bond is sealed." The court fell silent. Some knelt in fear, others stared in hatred. The human stood with the child clinging to him, his heart racing. He did not understand what power flowed between them, but he knew one thing: he would never let her go. And in the shadows of the chamber, the elder noble whispered to his allies, his eyes burning with hate, "If prophecy cannot be stopped, then we will break it with blood, the test of blood." The mark still glowed faintly on the human's chest when the queen returned to her throne. The hall was shaken, the nobles pale with fear. Some bowed low, whispering prayers. Others clenched their fists in anger, unwilling to surrender to prophecy. The elder noble stood tall again, his voice cold and sharp. "Majesty, we cannot accept tricks of light and fire. If the bond is real, then let him face the test of blood. Only then will truth be known." The queen's eyes narrowed. She knew the danger of the test. It was a ritual older than the empire itself, a trial of fire and blood that burned false bonds away. If the bond was not true, the flames would consume him, leaving only ashes. But if it was real, the fire would bend. The queen hesitated. Her heart battled with itself. She wanted to protect her child, to protect the stranger who had already risked his life for her daughter. But the eyes of the court pressed against her, demanding, accusing. At last her voice rang out, heavy with command. "Prepare the altar." The hall stirred. Guards moved quickly, dragging forward a stone platform carved with runes. Flames of the sacred torches flared higher, as if they knew what was to come. The nobles leaned closer, their whispers like poison in the air. The human was led to the altar, his chains gone, yet he did not resist. He looked down at the princess, who held his hand tightly. Her eyes glowed with fear, but also with courage. "Do not be afraid," she whispered. "You will not burn." He gave her a faint smile, though his heart pounded. He had no reason to believe her, yet somehow her voice gave him strength. The priest stepped forward, his staff glowing faintly, his voice carried across the chamber. "By the law of the stars, by the bond of flame, let truth be shown. If he is false, let fire take him. If he is true, let fire bend to him." The queen rose, her silver eyes trembling though she tried to hide it. The nobles leaned forward like vultures, eager for blood. The flames around the altar roared higher, stretching toward the human. The heat pressed against his skin, searing, burning. His breath caught as fire coiled around him. The child cried out, "No!" She tried to run forward, but guards held her back. Her small hands reached out, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Father, hold on." The fire wrapped around him, licking at his body, but he did not scream. He clenched his fists, his jaw tight. The flames grew brighter, swirling like a storm. And then, something changed. The mark on his chest blazed like a star. The flames hesitated, as if bowing. They spun around him, swirling in a circle, burning everything but his flesh. The nobles gasped as the fire bent into patterns, forming wings of light around him. The priest dropped to his knees. "It is true," he cried. "The bond is real. Fire itself has bowed." The hall erupted in chaos. Some nobles fell to the floor, whispering prayers. Others shouted in fury, "He is a danger. He will destroy us. This cannot be allowed." The queen stood frozen, her lips parted. For the first time she could not speak. Her throne, her pride, her rule, all trembled in the shadow of fate. The child broke free from the guards and ran to him, throwing her arms around him. The flames vanished instantly, leaving only warmth. She whispered, her voice clear and certain, "I told you, you will not burn." The human wrapped his arms around her, breathing hard. His heart still raced, but he knew now the bond was unshakable. Not even death had touched it, and in the shadows of the hall, the elder noble's face twisted into hatred. His whisper to his allies was filled with venom. If fire will not kill him, then blades will. The queen's silent tears. The fire was gone, the altar cold, but the throne room still trembled with what had been seen. The human stood unharmed, the mark on his chest glowing faintly beneath his torn shirt. The little princess clung to him, her face pressed against his side, as if she would never let go. The nobles were in chaos. Some knelt on the floor, whispering in fear of destiny. Others shouted in rage, their voices shaking the crystal walls. This cannot be allowed. He will destroy the crown. End him before it is too late. The queen raised her hand, and the hall grew still. Her face was pale, her silver eyes wide. For the first time in her reign, she had no words. She sat on her throne, her crown heavy on her brow, and the silence stretched long and deep. The human looked at her, his chest still burning with the strange mark. He could see the storm in her eyes, the battle between her crown and her child. He almost pitied her, though she had power over his life. At last, the queen stood. Her steps echoed through the hall. She walked down from the throne toward her daughter, toward the human. Her hands trembled. Though she hid them in her long sleeves, she stopped before them, and for a long moment, she said nothing. The little princess lifted her face, her glowing eyes locked on her mother. She spoke softly but firmly, "He is mine." The queen's breath caught. Those words pierced her heart more than any blade. She wanted to cry out, to tell her daughter she was wrong, to remind her that no human could ever belong to the crown. But the truth lay before her eyes, and the fire itself had bowed to it. The queen's voice was barely a whisper. "Why not me?" she asked. Her words slipped from her lips before she could stop them. Her daughter had never spoken to her, never called her mother, yet in a single day, she had spoken to a stranger and chosen him. Tears gathered in her silver eyes. She turned quickly, hiding her face from the nobles, but the human saw them, shining in the light of the crystal hall. For the first time, the mighty queen wept, not for her crown, not for her empire, but for her child. The hall remained silent. The nobles did not dare speak. They had never seen their queen so human, so broken. The human's heart ached as he watched her. He felt no triumph, only sorrow, for he understood her pain. To love a child and never hear her voice, then to lose her first word to another, was a wound deeper than any blade. The queen whispered again, her voice trembling, "If fate has chosen him, then what is left for me?" The child reached for her mother's hand. For the first time in years, she touched the queen willingly. Her small voice was soft, but it broke like dawn. "Mother." The queen gasped, her tears falling freely. Her knees weakened, and she fell beside her daughter. The word echoed in her ears, sweeter than any music. She held her daughter's small hand with both of hers, shaking, whispering, "Say it again." But the girl leaned back into the human's side, her little voice calm. "Father?" The queen's heart shattered anew, torn between joy and despair. Her daughter had spoken to her, yet she had chosen him. From the shadows of the hall, the elder noble smiled cruelly, for in the queen's tears he saw weakness. In her hesitation he saw opportunity. He leaned close to his allies, his whisper sharp as a dagger. "Tomorrow she will break. Tonight we strike." And so, as the queen wept in silence, as the child clung to the human, and as the court stood frozen in awe and fear, dark plans were already in motion. Blood would soon test bonds stronger than flame. A father by destiny. Night fell heavy over the palace. The air was cold, the halls dim, and shadows seemed thicker than usual. The queen sat alone in her chamber, her crown placed on the table beside her. Her fingers touched her cheeks where tears had dried. She had never shown such weakness before her court, but the weight of prophecy had crushed her heart. In another chamber, the human lay awake, the little princess curled at his side, her small hand gripping his sleeve. She breathed softly in sleep, but her hold on him was strong, as if even in dreams she feared losing him. He stared at the ceiling, his chest heavy with questions. "Why me?" he whispered to himself, but no answer came, only the steady heartbeat of the child resting against him. Outside, the elder noble and his allies crept through the halls, their cloaks dark, their daggers hidden. They moved like shadows, determined to end the prophecy with their own hands. "Strike fast," the elder hissed. "Kill the human, and, if the girl resists, kill her too." Their eyes burned with fear and hatred, but as they reached the chamber door, a glow stopped them. The mark on the human's chest shone faintly even as he slept. The glow spread across the floor, forming a circle of light around the bed. The nobles froze, fear gripping their bones. "What magic is this?" one whispered. But the elder forced his men forward. The door creaked open. The assassins raised their blades. Yet before they could strike, the child's eyes opened, glowing bright as stars. She sat up quickly, her voice strong. "Father," she cried. The human awoke, instincts burning in his blood. He rose, grabbing the first assassin by the wrist. The dagger clattered to the ground. The mark on his chest blazed. An invisible force threw the attackers back. They crashed into the walls, their cries echoing through the hall. Guards rushed in, drawn by the noise. The nobles tried to flee, but the queen herself appeared, her cloak flowing behind her. Her silver eyes burned as she looked at the traitors. Her voice thundered, "You dare raise your blades against the blood of the crown?" The elder noble, trembling, still tried to speak. "Majesty, it is for the Empire. The prophecy will destroy us." The queen's voice cut like a blade. "No, it is you who will destroy us with your fear." She raised her hand, and the guards seized the traitors, dragging them away in chains. The chamber grew quiet again. The human still stood, chest glowing, his arms around the child. She pressed her face against him, whispering softly, "I knew you would protect me." The queen looked at them, her heart torn. For years she had ruled with strength, with power, never bending to fate. But here, before her eyes, was something no crown could control. Her daughter had spoken, chosen, and bonded, and even fire had bowed to that bond. Slowly, she stepped closer, her voice soft, filled with something she had not felt in years. "You are hers," she said to the human, "and by that, you are ours." The human stared at her, surprised. "You accept this?" he asked. Tears touched her silver eyes again, but she nodded. "I must, for destiny has spoken. For the first time in my life, I cannot command it, I can only bow to it." The little princess reached for her mother with one hand and held the human with the other. For the first time, the three of them stood together, bound not by law or crown, but by something stronger. The court would never forget that day. The whispers of prophecy would spread across the empire. Some would call him a threat, others a savior. But one truth could not be denied. A human had become father to a child of destiny, and even a queen had bowed to it.